Tov. Welcome to Yom Kippur 2019. Yom Kippur 5780. Shh. Wow, that worked. Better than I thought it would. We're going to begin with a song. We're going to sing Return Again in Husky, Venu. If you want to stand up, please feel free to stand up. Get your energy up while you're still somewhat nourished. And join us as we sing together.
Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha,
This time I want to call up Sergio Rizzo Fontanesi to welcome. Did I get that okay? Okay, good. To welcome also.
Gamar Hatima Tova, everyone. Good evening. My name is Sergio Rizzo Fontanesi, and I am a profoundly grateful member of this community. And I am Beit Shuva's acting executive director. My story here began about 4 years ago when I walked through those sanctuary doors and I took a seat in the back row and I began to observe. And I did that for the better part of 2 years, listening, observing, watching, hearing people's stories, asking questions, learning and thinking about Beit Shuva. This all began as just a job, a 2-year program evaluation designed to assess Beit Shuva's scientific efficacy. I'm a UCLA-trained researcher who specializes in nonprofit evaluation and the intersections of spirituality, mental health, and culture. I know that sounds very fancy. When I first came here, I was at the beginning of my academic career. I had a research position at UCLA, and I was on the faculty at USC. I've always been a little bit conflicted. And Beit Shuva was one of a handful of other nonprofits like Homeboy Industries that our team at UCLA had evaluated. And I began this project just like any other job, until it wasn't. I often say that I do not fit in here. I am a demographic outlier. I am not an addict. I am not Jewish. To be candid with you, I don't know what I would do with any type of drug paraphernalia. But while I do not fit in, I belong, and I connect. The reason, at the core, each of us is searching for something that we might not know we are seeking: connection and acceptance. The common variable at Beit Shuvah is not cultural heritage, substance abuse, or addiction. The struggle of every resident here is a profoundly human struggle, and the struggle of every person. Who am I? What is my purpose? Do I matter? Do you see me? These are the questions with which each of us wrestle. Beit Shuvah teaches that the answers are found when immersed in a spiritual community based on radical acceptance of each and every person just as they are, while learning to integrate divided and opposing internal inclinations and developing human relationships based on authenticity, transparency, and truth. As much as it was challenging for me to admit, this too has been my journey here. In spite of the interviews and life histories collected, the data and statistical tests run, the models of recovery and nonprofit organizational theory, I could not avoid confronting myself. I was asked the simple but difficult task of stepping out of my role and into my soul and allowing people to see me as well. When the job did come to an end 2 years later in 2017, I felt both sadness and a sense of disorientation. So I did what any other self-respecting PhD from UCLA would do. I hung around. I attended Shabbos weekly, community events, and all the Jewish holidays. And candidly, I am proud to admit that I'm a much better Jew than I am Catholic. Eventually, the powers that be must have felt sorry for me or figured that I could have been of some use. Early last year, Warren Breslow, who has been a profound mentor to me and an integral part of Beit Shuvah since the beginning, invited me to be part of a strategic planning committee on program continuity and succession planning. A few months later, I was hired as the Director of Clinical Services. And 15 months after that, effective October 1st, the Board of Directors has asked me to serve as the Acting Executive Director. Thank you. I can think of no higher honor or privilege in my life. Beit Shuvah now finds itself in full-on succession mode. Admittedly, transitions can be difficult at times and can make us feel uncertain and insecure about the future. In response to these challenges, I advocate a simple, though that is not to say easy, vision. We are dedicated to preserving that which works well. We will maintain a fierce commitment to our founding principles, our long-term integrated treatment model, mission over money, or at the very least, mission and money because we need to run the place, and conserving Beit Shuvah as a spiritual and above all Jewish program. We must also boldly identify that which needs to change in order to adapt to new and diverse demands, and courageously confront challenges so that we can continue to help wrestling souls heal for generations to come. Our commitment must be that Beit Shuvah will remain a permanent part of the Los Angeles Jewish community and also part of the broader addiction treatment service landscape. I am often told that given my 2-year immersive study of Beit Shuvah, I am probably the most well-informed hire in the history of the organization. To which many not so jokingly add, there must be something seriously wrong with me for accepting the position, given all that I know of the place. Here's the truth. there is something seriously wrong with me. But that's part of the job description, and I can admit that, and I'm open about it. But I also know that I would have been incredibly foolish to turn down the opportunity to work in such a magnificent and unique place. So this is no longer just a job. This has become a way of life. And so on behalf of myself and Rabbi Ben, Rabbi Mark and Harriet, our board chair and board of directors, all of our staff and residents, welcome to Beit Shuvah.
We continue. We're going to show a song up on the screen, Out of the Depths. Yes, you're next. This is Harriet Rosetto, by the way.
Gemara Tov, everybody. I just want to say, Sergio, that your appearance at this time is evidence-based of divine intervention. So. I'm going to read the prayer on forgiving, and then I'm going to tell you my experience with it, because as I learned from Rabbi Mark, prayer is about seeing oneself. It isn't petitionary, it's reflexive to examine oneself. So here's the prayer. Rabbona Shel Olam, I hereby forgive whoever has hurt me and whoever has done me any wrong, whether deliberately or accidentally, whether by word or by deed. May no one be punished on my account, and may it be your will, O Lord my God and God of my ancestors, that I sin no more, that I not revert to my old ways, that I not anger you anymore with my actions, and that I not do that which is evil in your sight. Wipe away my sins with your great compassion, rather than through sickness or suffering. May these words of my mouth and the prayers that are in my heart be acceptable before you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. When I read it first, I thought, nobody's really hurt me, so who am I going to forgive? And so what am I going to say about this? And then I took another look. And I asked myself, who has hurt me in this year, and who do I have to forgive? And I was stumped at first. I went down the list of suspects, and I watch a lot of Dateline, so the husband is always the first suspect, you know? And I asked, has Mark hurt me? And he hasn't hurt me. Mark has never hurt me. Sometimes he's annoying, and he pays more attention to his devices than he does to me, but he has never hurt me. And so I looked around at the other people who haven't lived up to my expectations, perhaps, or have disappointed me in some way. But that's not on them. That's on me. They were my expectations. So why, if no one has hurt me, have I been feeling so hurt? And I had to look at what hurts me. And I confess that I feel hurt when I'm left out or excluded by others, when I feel misunderstood or ignored or rejected, and when I feel that I'm insignificant or irrelevant. I know better than to feel these feelings. I teach other people that feelings aren't facts. Nobody does anything to you. Feelings are a choice. But I have not been able to walk my talk of late. I have reverted to old ways, as it says in the prayer. And I know that most of the stuff that happens isn't personal. So why have I not been able to walk my talk or practice what I preach? And I think what I concluded was that the specter of old age, loss of identity, the succession and transition and fear of irrelevance and loss of purpose has activated old childhood wounds. And I have allowed myself at times to wallow in those wounds. So who do I have to forgive? I have to forgive the hurt child who still lives in me, who has been hiding in plain sight. And I commit to taking better care of her in the year ahead. I also commit to allow God's grace to overcome my fears, and I pray to be gracious in all my affairs. So here's my mantra for the coming year. I've decided that souls improve with age. And I am going to be an old soul, not an old lady.
Thank you, Harriet. Now we're going to hear from Zach Jones, who's going to do a drosh based on the prayer, May We Speak the Truth, on page 395.
Thank you, Rabbi. Gamar Tov, everybody. Hi. I'm Zach Jones. I'm a grateful member of this community. Every year, I'm a terrified member of this community when I stand up here. It's like we do a lot of beautiful things in my job and in this community and recovery in my life. And on the list of the hardest things for me to do, this is like number 1 or 2. Just want to put that out there. I'm going to read a prayer now, and then I'm going to talk about it. May we speak the truth. Our Lord, our God, many are the evasions and deceits which we practice upon others and upon ourselves. We long to speak and hear truth only, yet time and time again, from fear of loss or hope of gain, from dull habit or cruel deliberation, we speak half-truths, we twist facts, we are silent when others lie, and we lie to ourselves. But we stand now before you, and our words and thoughts speed to one who knows them before we utter them. We know we cannot lie in your presence. May our worship teach us to practice truth in speech and in thought before you and before one another. So, truth in speech and in thought is a good beginning. In recovery, we're encouraged to speak in truths, to share our secrets, to take responsibility for our part in conflicts, acknowledge our shortcomings, take inventory, make amends, and do teshuvah. We do so with an earnest sincerity and hopefully with the desire to move forward and learn to live well. At times, though, I let my insecurities drive my words, owning parts of my story that seem to justify me staying stuck or scared or anxious. And sometimes the truth falls short. If I'm not careful, the very things that are supposed to help me heal can keep me sick. Sometimes we hide behind the truth and use it as a means of staying trapped and in shame. You see, the lie in recovery is often that if you drop the rock, make the right amends, then everything will just be okay. But I think that words may fail us in some of the most critical of times. Aren't my thoughts and prayers sufficient? Won't my inventory taking and apologies keep me on the path? The lie I tell myself is that they are. We have to take it further, a lot further. To speak and pray in truths is part of the story, but the bigger part is through action. It does not always translate words to action, and that's where I think we and I miss the mark the most. Now, I could attempt to get cute or technical here, describe some spiritual and psychological theory as to how this should be translated and accomplished and actualized, but those are just words, and some of the best ideas are simple ones. When I pray for the power to take action, to show up, engage, and connect, not just participate, not just acknowledge when my side of the street needs work, but to get down and clean it up, to lead by example, by what my feet are doing and not just what my mouth is saying when I stand up here. The approach is my words and the demonstration are my actions. It's how I live my life. What we do every day to make just a little bit of progress and to strive for something better. To be a part of something much bigger than me and to make ourselves available when somebody else is suffering. I commit in this new year to stay in action, to avoid harmful gossip and half-truths. I commit to acting from a place of integrity. When I fall short, which I'm going to, I commit to making things right and doing better a little bit the next day. So my prayer today for myself and for all of you is that our worship helps us to be on the courageous journey of taking the next right indicated action no matter what. To build each other up and not tear each other down, to seek God through honoring each other's humanity, to live in truth and to act from a place of faith and not fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. That was beautiful. In just a moment, we're going to chant the Kol Nidre. The Kol Nidre service, what we're going to do is we're going to take all the Torahs out of the ark. And when we do that, the ark, which in Hebrew is known as an aron, becomes a different kind of aron. Because there is one other place in which we use the word aron, and that is casket. And when the rabbis were setting up Yom Kippur, they wanted death to be always on our minds. Great. The last few weeks, I've been doing high holiday services for a long time, and for some reason, the insanity of how we've always done Yom Kippur kind of hit me. I actually pictured a movie, I mean, you wouldn't expect to get a drosh from Happy Gilmore, but there's a scene, I remember, I was thinking about the high holidays in this context, where we go to God and we say, you're smart, I'm dumb, you're talented, you're good looking, I'm ugly, and I don't know anything. And that's a totally warped sense of what our Creator would expect from us. We enter into this Kol Nidre, we enter into this Yom Kippur, yeah, to be better, but also to acknowledge the love that God already has for us, not because of what we do, but because we are who we are. Just by dint of being created, we've earned God's love. It doesn't say in the beginning, we're created in the image of the divine if we do certain things. We are just created in the image of the divine. And it's not God that forgets that, it's us. So as we chant the Kol Nidre, as we enter into some of the most familiar liturgy to us, that sound cool, we know it. Just instead of the fear, bask in the love. That's what I'm going to ask of you. So I'm going to ask you all to please rise. And Sam, come on up. Kathy Galper, come on up. Rose Sternow, David, come on up. Janice and Ben, come on up. You're going to hold the Torahs.
Kol Nidre Vesare Vacharame Vekoname Vechinuye Vekinuse Ushevu Nafshat Kol Nidre Vesare Vacharame Vekoname Vechinuye Vekinuse Ushavu
For the second Kol Nidre, I want to call up Neil and Barbara Solars, Andrea and Paul Bergman, Russell Kern, and David and Terry Elston to hold the Torahs, if you will. Come on up. Do you want me to carry it or you? Will you take that from him, sir? Now for the third Kol Nidre, I'm going to call up Bruce and Sue Conheim and the Matt Maslin Neal. Come on up. And Winnie, come on up. And Pat and Sandy Gage and Susan and Jack Cravoy to hold the Torahs for the last Kol Nidre.
Kol Nidre ve'esarei v'charomei ve'konomei ve'chinoyei ve'kinusei
You may be seated. We continue on page 400 with the blessing for letting us reach this moment, the Shehechianu blessing.
Adonai.
Gemar Chatima Tova, which literally means may you be sealed for good. It's literally what it means. Before we read the Kol Nidre, we read the words B'yeshiva shel mala u'v'yeshiva shel mata, by the authority of the court on high and the authority of the court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, and I love this next part, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed. We're allowed to pray with those who, thank God we're allowed to pray with those who have transgressed, because it's not us, clearly. So even the rabbis on Yom Kippur had a sense of humor. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to, you have these things in your seats or under your seats, these bottles, right? They were handed out, right? So you have these pill bottles. All right, you don't have to get them out yet. It's okay. I want to explain why we're using them. Some of the feedback we got last year was about how shocking it was to have these pill bottles and how provocative it was. Good. I'm not going to stand here and talk to you about the statistics of the opioid crisis. But you don't put crisis with something that's just going okay. The reason we have the pill bottles is, don't think about all of the statistics. Just think about the person. When I was growing up, and I'm sure many of you, we were taught that there were certain people in our lives that we should trust implicitly. And what they say is what we should do. One of these people was our doctor. And I want you to think about what it means to have someone you trust unknowingly, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, unknowingly setting us on a path towards our own destruction. A few months ago, I shared an article with some of the staff members here, written by a woman with whom I grew up. It was called, My Mother Got Me Hooked on Opioids, because she was having pain and her mother didn't want to see her suffer. And so she, innocently enough, tried to alleviate the suffering of her daughter and gave her a pill. She had no way of knowing what was going to happen. This crisis is real. The plagues that racked Egypt are not gone. They come back in different form. And the opioid crisis is one of them. And so we draw attention to that tonight, because this appeal and that crisis are tied into each other. You're going to hear from one of our staff members, a man who has become an inspiration to so many of his clients. He's going to tell you what he went through. So I'm going to exit and let him tell his story. Xander, where are you? Where is he? Oh, there he is. There's a big pillar. I didn't see it.
Hi, I'm Xander Albright, and I'm very grateful to be here tonight. Hi. I want to thank Rabbi Ben for asking me to speak, and when he asked me, he said, just go up there and tell your story. It's a long story, but when he told me to focus on the opioid aspect of it, I really had to reconsider just how profoundly opiates impacted my life. I had an awesome childhood. I did. In like my teenage years, I didn't have to worry about anything. I just had to do what was expected of me. I had to get good grades and play sports, have friends, and I didn't really have pain or problems. I just knew the script for my life and what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to finish high school. I was supposed to go to college. I was supposed to then go, grad school, law school, whatever it is, make money, do all that. And that all got ripped to shreds when I was 20. When I was 19, my dad became profoundly sick and passed away by the time that I was 20. And I was experiencing pain in a way that I didn't know was at all possible. And I think it was some sort of divine intervention. Honestly, the opioids were introduced to me at that time. because I needed something to at least be able to exist. They say, drugs, at first they're not the problem, there's a solution, and the problem was the pain, and they were a solution. But it led to much bigger problems that I couldn't ever have anticipated. It led to years of me being able to function with opioids in my life, to be able to continue on the path that I was supposed to be on in school and in grad school and choosing a career path. However, as the opioid use continued to increase, I became increasingly disconnected from myself. I became disconnected from everything I was doing. I was going through the motions on every front, in my family, in my relationships, at work. I was becoming a therapist. Like, I was in school studying psychology to become a therapist and had no connection to myself, to my soul, to my life. And sitting there trying to, help people figure themselves out, solve their problems, created this terrible, terrible split in me. I felt like a fraud in everything that I was doing. And the mask was so real and so intense, and I was wearing this mask for the better part of a decade. So when the time came for me to come to Beit Shuvah and to get sober and take the mask off, like, I thought I knew how. I thought I knew what to do. I just had to stop using the drugs, and the mask would come off. But it wasn't that simple. And the work, after I relapsed, the work shifted focus. It was no longer just about getting off opioids. It was about figuring out what my authentic self was, who I am. And that's the heart of what I get to do now at Beit Shuvah, is to discover authenticity in myself through others and to watch others on that journey of discovering their authentic selves. And that's so much bigger than sobriety and recovery, I think. It's part of it, but I think it's definitely the most transformational part for me. And it's something that you don't hear a lot of in other treatment centers and other areas in recovery. It's just about getting clean, getting off the drugs. But the search for your soul and the search for authenticity is so much more meaningful. And I get to now show up for work, for my life, for my girlfriend, for my family, for everything that I do in a way where I'm authentic, and I feel good about everything I'm doing. I feel good every night when I put my head down to go to sleep. I'm not wondering, like, what lies do I have to keep straight tomorrow, or, God, I really need to go, ask for help. This is getting out of hand. And that kind of peace of mind and that kind of authenticity is something that I will never, ever be able to put a price on. It's something that's keeping me motivated to continue doing this work for the rest of my life. So thank you. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Now I'd like to call upon our board chair, Janice Cavannah-Resnick, who's going to say a few words.
Everyone knows that the best way to raise money for almost any cause is to tell a real-life story of a person who has benefited from that cause. Telling the story inspires people and demonstrates the value and effectiveness of the cause. Then the hope is that the better angels, or as we know it here, the Yetzer HaTov in the people listening, will be moved to contribute. But I don't need to tell you those stories tonight. Not only did you hear from Sander and so many others, but every person here tonight is one of those inspiring stories. Whether you are a current resident or a former resident or a family member or a friend, you have a unique and inspiring story to tell. A story with ups and downs, a story with moments of defeat and setback, and times of great progress and triumph. Yours might be a tragic story. We mourn those tragic stories. Those stories of loss bind us closer here at Beit Shuvah and inspire us. Our stories weave the complex, nuanced, messy, imperfect, sometimes very sad, yet ultimately very beautiful tapestry, which we know as Beit Shuvah. Every single Friday night, we hear stories like the ones you've already heard tonight. And by the way, for those of you, there probably are not that many people here, but maybe somebody's listening, who has not experienced a Shabbat at Beit Shuvah,
Well, suffice it to say that it is a unique blend of revival, AA meeting, and Shabbat service, all rolled into one. It is truly awesome each week to hear our residents and alumni. We hear about the brokenness which led them, or the judges that ordered them, to come to Beit Teshuvah, the uneven and unique pathway which each resident celebrating a birthday walked on, sometimes stumbling, falling backwards, but then returning to be able to arrive at 1, 2, 10, or 20 years or more sober. The stories impress and move me each week. And on those weeks when there is a tragic loss, we hold together tightly as we cry and grieve together as a community. Together we comfort each other and gain strength from each other and give strength to each other in community. This is a very unique place. There is simply nothing like it anywhere in the world. You are all aware of the opioid epidemic that unfolded in America over the past decade or more. Resources have been stretched as millions of Americans now suffer from substance use disorders related to prescription opioid pain relievers, in addition to the millions who suffer from other types of substance use disorders. You know, as I do, that the role of Big Pharma is disturbing and has played the role that they have played in creating this epidemic, the billions of dollars in judgments and settlements that Johnson & Johnson and Purdue Pharma are paying for their role in fueling and profiting from this epidemic underscore the epic problem which we are now confronting as a nation. These stories can stoke feelings of hopelessness, and why not? Hopelessness is understandable. In just the documented cases alone, 130 people die each day in the United States from opioid overdoses. But here in the Beit Teshuvah community, we offer an alternative to feeling hopeless. We are part of a community that is already deeply engaged in helping addicts out of their hopelessness, out of their loneliness, out of their personal darkness. We help people find pathways to purposeful lives, to loving themselves, and to bonding with a caring and supportive and accepting community. And I know from my own personal experience that we at Beit Teshuvah are also deeply engaged in helping families recover from their sense of doom and hopelessness. I suspect everyone here knows how an entire family unit can be ravaged by the addiction of a single family member. We need help to cope and to overcome the helplessness, and often the hopelessness, which can plague those of us who have a child, a parent, a spouse afflicted by the disease of addiction. We too need to learn new ways of being, of relating, of accepting, and of not enabling. And we need to be present for those who have lost a loved one to this insidious disease of substance abuse. This is the work of Beit Teshuvah. So I am here to ask you to help. We are a nonprofit organization. We offer what is known to be the gold standard in recovery programs. Our long-term sobriety rates are amongst the very highest in the industry. We have a secret sauce, and that is the large and loving community available to all of our residents and their families and friends for life. The full cost of care at Beit Teshuvah is $15,000 a month, and this is substantially less than most residential treatment programs. The majority of our residents receive scholarships for their times at Beit Teshuvah, and the average resident stays for about a year until he or she is ready to leave and is armed with the necessary tools and coping mechanisms that will make continued sobriety possible. The full price of our services is simply out of reach for many, if not most people. Insurance companies have made it all but impossible to access meaningful benefits for recovery. Unless one is below the federal poverty guidelines, there has been little assistance to date from government, and what assistance does exist takes a substantial amount of time from our staff members to access. So I am asking you to help us help others. There is so much that we cannot control. No one in this room, even the most skilled of our therapists, rabbis, and spiritual counselors, can will an addict to sobriety. We can't take drugs off the streets. We cannot protect our kids or our loved ones from being vulnerable to instant remedies that promise to take the pain away. And we cannot force someone out of his or her loneliness and isolation. We cannot find another person's purpose or meaning, and we cannot make hearts stop aching. But we can provide an environment, the very best environment, which can help an addict help him or herself. According to the Rambam, the great Rabbi Maimonides, this is the highest of the 8 rungs of charity, to help a person help herself. A great Hasidic rabbi once said, and I'm quoting, "As lightning springs out of its concealment in dark clouds to flash through the world, so the divine light embedded in matter emerges through acts of tzedakah, acts of justice and charity. Thus, through charity, a sort of divine revelation occurs in the soul. Every person here tonight can help us send a bright light into the universe through our acts of tzedakah. We hope that tonight you will donate to Beit Tshuva. And I'm going to ask you what the rabbi already talked about, something you don't usually hear at Beit Tshuva, to take out your prescription bottles. And if you don't have one, in a minute I'm going to have you raise your hand, and Nicole and our staff will bring you one. Please take these bottles out and write a prescription which is a pledge to do your part, each to his or her own capacity, to mitigate the impact of addiction. You can shine a bright light, and you can be that sort of divine revelation that the great Hasidic rabbi spoke of. Each of us tonight can start our year by shining a light and saving a life. And as you heard our magnificent choir sing just a few moments ago, to save a life is as if you have saved the entire world. We each know that very well. Gemar Chatima Tova, may you be sealed into the book of life for the coming year. And let's use those prescription bottles tonight, and only tonight.
Look, we want to get done on time, so if you'll take out the bottles right now and start writing, it would help us, you know what I mean? I'm not seeing too many people write.
We got time.
So, you know, I mean, Yom Kippur goes until sundown tomorrow, so it don't matter to me. Russell? Mort, start writing. Okay, good. The doctor's writing a new kind of prescription.
We need some more in the center and over there to the right. My right, your left. If you're watching from home and you want to make the time go while we're doing this in here, you please feel free to make a donation on our website. It's beitshuva.org, and you can find where to donate on the homepage.
There's a button right on the screen, right?
If you go down on the page you're on and you scroll down on that page, you can even right-click and open a new window so you can keep watching us while you're doing it. You don't have to get rid of the show, get rid of the live stream. What channel is it on? ESPN. It's on ESPN.
It's on ESPN.
It's preempting the Astros game.
This is the Super Bowl of Judaism.
The people that are donating that are passing out the bottles are also going to collect them. So if you've already done that, I'm going to ask you to please rise as we turn to page 408 for the Baruch Hu as we sing together.
Oh
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
You may be seated. We turn to page 409 for Ahavat Olam. There's still people walking around if you need to give in your prescription bottles.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל אהבת, תורת ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימוד איתה. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך. ונשמח בדברי תורתך ומצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגד יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו, באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו, באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Now we're going to call upon Lisa Harrison, who's going to say a few words on page 412 about the Shema. All right, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Harrison. I'm a grateful member of this community.
Hi, Lisa.
Good evening. So I'm going to tell you a little story. As the story goes, my grandfather, who I called Papa Dad, taught and said a bedtime prayer to all 5 of his boys. When I was a child, as far back as I can remember, I would say this prayer before my light was turned out and by my dad, and I fell into slumber. I thank thee, O God, for the sweet rest of the night and the blessings of the new day. Double guard me when I'm asleep, protect me also when I'm awake. Teach me to be kind, truthful, and obedient, that I may deserve to love my parents and find favors in the eyes of men. Then we would say the Shema, 6 powerful words. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. This was my introduction to the Shema. As I grew up throughout my childhood into my teenage years and beyond, the beginning part of that prayer eventually faded, but the Shema was always with me. But I must admit, it was just a robotic thing that was said at services. I never knew what it meant. I just knew that I was supposed to chant it when the rabbi or the cantor told the congregation to do so. Kol Nidre was my first service at Beit Teshuvah 10 years ago. This is where my journey into what the Shema means to me. I know the meaning has changed over the last 10 years, not so much changed, but evolved. To hear is not just to listen. To hear Yisrael, that wrestle, has been a whole new thing for me. What is this wrestle? What's this wrestle inside of me? This is where the evolving has come. It has changed over the last 10 years, and I hope the wrestle continues to change with each passing day and month and year to come. Closing and covering my eyes while I chant the Shema helps me to focus on me and what I'm wrestling with in that moment and the moments that have occurred since my last chant. It could be a tough day at work, a tough day at home, an argument with a loved one, or a mistake I've made that I need to surrender to and make amends for. The Shema helps me remember that I'm not alone ever. God is always with me and wrestling with me to help me get through. I make it a point every morning and every night, every day, to pray the Shema, to be at one with me and God, to help me get through the day, to help me rest easy at night. So I ask you, what do you hear and what do you wrestle with within? The Shema may help you with that. Maybe the Shema can help you find out. Maybe not, but it's 6 words. What could it hurt? Gamar Chatima Tova.
We're on page 412 for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael,
Israel, the Lord our God is one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one.
We turn to page 418 for Micha Mocha. Yeah, you can clap. That's what we do here. We're on page 420 which we call up Judy, who will give a Cavannah on the Husky Venu. Come on up, Judy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Judy, and I'm a grateful resident and member of this community. I'm standing here in front of you to speak about the powerful prayer of Husky Venu. Here we ask God for comfort and protection to cover the range of things we fear might harm us. Husky Venu Hashem Elokeinu Shalom. Can you guys hear my heartbeat? No? It's really loud. Oh God, help us to lie down in peace. To me, that means that I need to find a way to make peace with myself despite my past. So often, I get caught up in my own suffering, negative thinking, and belief that I'm undeserving of a fulfilling life. V'amidenu malkenu lechaim, and raise us up again, our King, to life. On this day of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, as the verse states, for on this day he will forgive you, to purify you, that you may be cleansed from all your sins before God. For as long as I can remember, my life was controlled by fear. I suffered a lot of abuse as a child. It created in me a lot of shame, blame, and guilt, and made it nearly impossible for me to trust anybody, especially myself. Here at Beit Teshuvah, I've learned to channel those fears and use them to my advantage by listening to those fears and placing firm boundaries to protect myself. It's definitely easier said than done. Ufros alenu sukat shalomecha, spread over us a temporary shelter of your peace. This didn't make any sense to me. Why are we asking for a temporary structure of peace? Wouldn't it make more sense to say castle of peace? Something made out of stone, something more permanent? I grew up moving around a lot. It all started when I was 13. My parents and 8 siblings were kicked out of the community for breaking one of their rules. 2 years later, we were homeless for 6 months straight. No community wanted to accept us. This makes me think about how in Europe in the 1930s and 1940s, Jews were persecuted because of their beliefs. My family, too, was persecuted for a belief that they had and an action that they took. It caused us to be homeless, hungry, and fighting for our lives every day. Every experience in my life prepared me for the next. I became stronger than I thought I could. My life started with a kick in the butt, which made everything else coming forward seemingly a piece of cake to handle. I'm standing here today knowing that I survived a horror movie. Now I'm down to make a successful reality show. So back to my question. Why a temporary shelter of peace? Peace is an extremely delicate balance, a structure that has to be constantly tended, regularly repaired, and often reconstructed entirely. The image of a sukkah of peace, more than a castle, reminds us of how much work it takes to create peace in our world and our lives, and how difficult it is to maintain that peace, precisely because it is so delicate and so easily damaged. Here I ask God to guide me. V'taknenu be'etzah tova milfanecha. May we be guided by your good counsel, so I can build my temporary shelter to shield me against my foes, plague, destruction, and sorrow. Sharpen my sword, strengthen me against evil forces which abound on every side. That's why I need to channel my fears to my advantage and place firm boundaries to overcome them. My instincts are real and true. They come from my experiences in life. Then it says, may we always sense your care, for you are a merciful sovereign. Guard us always and everywhere. Guard us always and everywhere. Bless us with life and peace. Amen. Thank you.
Page 420, Husky, Venu.
Husky, Venu, Adonai Eloheinu, Leshalom. Ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shalomecha, v'takninu beitza tova milfanecha, ve'oshinu leman shemecha.
Vaden, Vaden, Vadenu, Vaden, Vaden, Vadenu,
V'chaser, v'holenu, oyev, dever v'cherem, v'chaser Satan, milfanenu, u'me'achareinu,
Shomreinu, Matzilenu, Ata, Ata. Ki Shomreinu, Matzilenu, Ata, Ata.
Ushmotze
Religion, the end of isolation, begins with a consciousness that something is asked of us. It is in that tense, eternal asking in which the soul is caught, in which the human's answer is elicited. Wonder is not a state of aesthetic enjoyment. Endless wonder is endless tension. The state of being asked ultimate questions. Endless wonder unlocks an innate sense of indebtedness. Wonder is the state of our being asked. This quote from Rabbi Heschel in his book, Man is Not Alone, sums up my recovery, my way of living, and the foundation and core value of Beit Shuvah for these past 30-plus years that I've been here. I want to explain my fascination with and devotion to Rabbi Heschel. It is that he speaks directly to my soul with an urgency that I have felt forever and did not know what to do with. I have lived with endless tension and believed that there was something wrong with me. Through Rabbi Heschel's teaching, I realized that I have a gift, a burden of a mind that sees what's right, and how do I live more right? A soul that sees what isn't right, and how do I and we live repairing these ways, and a burning that's prophetic in nature that doesn't know how to turn away from the ineffable one. Ineffable is Rabbi Heschel's word for God, because ineffable means too much to even begin to describe. Rabbi Heschel guides me through life. He talks to me and helps me go through life's experiences, good and not so good, with wonder, awe, hope, love, truth, compassion. Rabbi Heschel teaches me not to be or talk about some part of life, some part of my personality, some part of my tension. Rather, to see all of my life as a work of art, and I'm a creator of this work. Rabbi Heschel guides me to living well and at times pushes me through all life's experiences. Why is this so important? Because most people talk about life's trials and tribulations, joys and successes. They don't talk to life's excitements and responses to being asked. Most people look for ways out of life situations, not through life's experiences. Rabbi Heschel has made it clear to me how much I owe. Many people look at my life and think it's easy for me to know that I owe because of all the wrongs I did prior to my recovery. This is not what Rabbi Heschel is speaking about. We are all hounded by the asking and the indebtedness. My friend and teacher, Rabbi Ed Feinstein, in describing seeing me in his hospital room after liver cancer surgery, smiling and saying at 5 a.m. in the morning, "Let's study." He knew then and knows now how wonderful it is to repay the debt, to hear the endless call, and to have a response. I owed Ed, God, and me in that moment. And I responded in the only way that was right for me and for Ed. Let's study. It's what I want to do with you this evening. I want to help you experience and be truly and completely a member of this community. We are called Jews, people of the book. Yet most of us don't know what the book says. We come to services and classes to learn what the rabbi or teacher thinks the book says, yet we don't immerse ourselves in the book to know what we think, what we learn. Quiet as it's kept, even some teachers and rabbis don't immerse themselves in the text. Rather, they repeat what others, learned sages, say about the text. This is not engaging with endless wonder, nor is it a path to responding to being asked. Being immersed in my life means I cannot rest on my laurels, my earlier accomplishments. We live in the world, not around it, not over it, in it. Addiction is the state of escaping the burden of being asked. It is the state of endless despair and trying to escape the tension that makes us human. In my years here at Beit Shuv, I've watched residents and families and people who join our community wake up to being called. I watch and participate with them in having a new response to being asked. Whereas prior, many people might have engaged in good work. They did so out of a sense of having to, not getting to. They have done so because it looked good for a resume, an application of some kind. Upon learning together, especially for me and for many, of Rabbi Heschel and how poetically and beautifully he chastises us, we wake up to the joy of being called, the joy of becoming maladjusted, not going along with conventional notions and cliches, the joy of endless wonder. The men I study with on Saturday mornings get up to be here at 7 a.m. to find a new response to the call from God, from others, and from our own souls. As Rabbi Heschel teaches, we receive continually. A breath of fresh air is inhalation of grace. Personal being is achieved by what we offer in return. To be a person is to reciprocate, to offer in return what one receives. I become a person by knowing the meaning to receiving and giving. Wow. What an order. Yet how simple this is. One of our rabbis, one of the rabbis that Harriet and I studied with, in fact, the one she mentioned, who told her, you know, should you marry him, shouldn't you marry him? The question is whether or not Mark's the right guy. The question is, do you want to be alone? This was my rabbi telling her this. I mean, you know. Jonathan taught us about reciprocity of generosity. Well, we don't necessarily return the kindness to the person who was kind to us. We most certainly must pay the kindness forward. This is what I believe Rabbi Heschel is saying also. This is what Beit Shuvah and me have done for these 30-plus years. All of you tonight have been, and I pray will continue to be generous with time and money. Did I say money? Pill bottles, you know, prescriptions. No shame. I believe that we have given you back in return as well. Yet we have to remember this is not one and done. We have to continue to receive and to give. We have to continue to care for the stranger, the poor, the one who is an orphan and a widow in their own inner lives. This is the mystical calling of Beit Shuvah for these past 30-plus years and the foundation of this congregation and our integrative program. You all have given me so much, and I've received the good, the beautiful, the bad, and the ugly these past 30 plus years. We're able to live in endless wonder only when we are totally immersed in our living. We're immersed in our living when we live in and through the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and lifetime challenges that give our lives character, meaning, and joy. When we see ourselves in the text and the prayers differently from week to week, year to year, we're immersed in living our unique lives. When we let go of the need to be right all the time, to be the smartest one in the room, my way or the highway, we're open to responding with new, creative, and holy solutions to the challenges we all face each and every day. We're immersed when we continue to respond to the call of those around us, those we have never met, and God. I owe each of you here, those who were here and those who will be here, a debt of gratitude. I owe the various spiritual counselors who have worked here over the years a debt of gratitude. I owe Rabbi Goldstein a debt of gratitude. I owe the staff, past and present, a debt of gratitude. I owe the board of directors, past and present, my deepest gratitude. I owe my teachers, especially Rabbi Feinstein and Rabbi Heschel, Heather Garrett, my daughter, my wife Harriet Rosetto, my brother Neil, my sister Sherry, and of course my parents, grandparents, brothers, cousins, aunts, and uncles who are deceased, the deepest debt of gratitude. My repayment, my response is what I've given out over the years that was good and helpful. My repayment, my response is shifted. It's no longer the day-to-day. It's no longer leading all the services. My day-to-day, my response is shifted. And now I get to train clergy and educators and medical professionals all over the United States in the way we live. My repayment and my response is living in endless wonder and staying immersed and aware of the joy I receive each and every day, and respond by giving it back to you and to others. We'll never arrive at a day that we're paid in full. We can only keep arriving at the next rung of the ladder towards a world that honors every human being as a divine image. That's my prayer. I put the cards in. I commit to be immersed in life. I commit to view life with endless wonder. That's the best repayment that any of us can make. Gemar Chatima Tova. We continue on 451. Medina is going to teach us about Kihine Kachomer.
Good evening. My name is Medina, and I'm a grateful resident. So I kept mine actually written this time because I tend to get lost in what I'm saying. I have a prayer poem that I'm going to read first, which will correlate with what I wrote afterwards. We are in your hand, as clay in the hand of a potter, who thickens or thins it at will. So are we in your hand, O God of love. Recall your covenant, forgive our sins. As stone in the hand of a mason, who preserves or breaks it at will, so are we in your hand, O God of life. Recall your covenant, forgive our sin. As iron in the hand of an artisan, who forges or rejects it at will, so are we in your hand, O God who saves. Recall your covenant, forgive our sin. As glass in the hand of a blower, who shapes or melts it at will, So are we in your hand, O gracious God. Recall your covenant, forgive our sin. As cloth in the hand of a draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, O righteous God. Recall your covenant, forgive our sin. As silver in the hand of a smelter who alloys or refines it at will, so are we in your hand, O healing God. Recall your covenant, forgive our sins. So I wrote something, sorry, I'm getting older, that actually I took out of this. And so I'm just going to read it to you. Our lives are like an endless piece of art, imperfectly perfect. I used to believe that I was a piece of art that seemed beautiful from a distance, but after close observation, you could see all my imperfections. Although now I know that I was ever evolving, and that I could choose to either leave the painting just as beautiful as it is, or I could choose to change my colors into a new creation. I personally feel that God allows me to have a choice to live as a broken glass or to rebuild myself into a new creation. For the longest time, I didn't accept God because I felt he had cursed me with the creation he had painted me into. But along my path of life, I was blind to see that he set forth the tools to allow me to create whom I felt I should have been, and in my heart I always knew I always was. I have learned that God has always given me a choice, but it was for me to see the paintbrushes set out for me to use. My paintbrushes have never stopped painting on my canvas of life, whether it be a painting of pain, joy, laughter, and grief. I feel now that I'm an ever-evolving masterpiece, and I thank God for allowing me to breathe on my unthinkable masterpiece called life. And, I mean, for me, I feel like I was blind to what God was trying to show me, and within this place, I've began to find myself again. And, you know, my painting may be perfect just the way it is, but it's whether or not I continue to grow from everything I continue to learn, so I want to be teachable. And there is no way that I could ever repay what Beit Teshuvah has done for me. And it's given me a life to be proud of, and soon I will be taking a position in New York for the Teshuvah Center. But more than anything, I will forever be indebted for giving me back my life. And for that, I'm thankful, Harriet and Rabbi Mark and everybody else that is here. I truly do love you, and just like you say to me, I see you.
Okay, this is an original of Kihine Kachomer. This was written by cantor Rebecca Mirsky. It's going to be done by Laura and Nate.
Like a potter's piece of clay, like the mystery of a new day, like the thread in the hands of a weaver. Your miracles make me a believer. We are in your hands. We are in your hands. We are in your hands.
like a gardener's hopeful seeds. You promise our hearts to feed, like the stone in the hands of a mason, the beginning of its creation. We are in your hands. We are in your hands. We are in your hands. Your grace saves us. Your righteousness reminds us. Your love creates us. You heal us with your kindness.
Like a potter's piece of clay, like the mystery of a new day. In my days I must remember what I promised you last September. We are in your hands. We are in your hands. We are in your hands. Keeping our faith.
Thea's going to talk about the Adonai Adonai.
Hi, I'm Thea. Hi,
Thea.
Grateful resident. Totally. Very nervous. What I got mostly from the prayer is that it's about forgiveness and having compassion. And despite being very forgiving and compassionate towards others, for most of my life, I haven't been that way towards myself. For as long as I can remember, I've had a never enough attitude, never pretty enough, never athletic enough, never smart enough, never rich enough, and then eventually never high enough. Perfectionism has always been the goal. The problem with this is that humans are imperfect. I came to Beit Shuvah last January exhausted and out of ideas. I'd been to about 40 rehabs and was devoid of almost all hope. I'd lost faith in the system, and like Matt said earlier during Rosh Hashanah, I devoted most of my time to finding faults in the treatment systems and in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was committed to being right, and because of this, I was closed off to learning anything new. I figured I had been around the block long enough, and there was nothing new that you could teach me. I felt that I was alone in this world, and that was the way it was going to stay. It was painful experiencing life as if everything was going to fall apart at any moment. I'd lost faith in the people who were supposed to help me, and I'd lost faith in myself. I had fallen into a cycle where the pain and fear of losing everything became so tormenting that I would just relapse and start the cycle again. It was familiar to do that, and honestly more comfortable than staying sober after all the treatments I'd been to. My identity had become wrapped up in being a hopeless addict, and Honestly, I thrived in the chaos. I didn't know how to stay sober, and I didn't know how to show up for myself. A lot has happened over the duration of my stay here at Beit Shuvah. I have relapsed, stayed sober the longest I have in 10 years, lost a mother and an ex-girlfriend, and developed a relationship with my father and brother again. I've gotten rid of Hep C, etc. A lot has happened. I've experienced both the highs and the lows. What I can tell you about my mother passing is that while it was and still is one of the most painful things I've ever experienced, I've learned a lot from it, and I've gained a lot from it. It helped me become extremely close with my family again. It taught me the importance of showing up for myself in order to show up for my family, and it helped me find God again. Today, my father is my best friend, and I talk to him daily. I find God in family, in this community, and in music. For a long time, I perceived that the connection with God was severed. What I couldn't forgive myself for was separating from God. I walked around feeling separate from everything. I always felt like I just didn't belong. Beit Shuvah has shown me that God always has forgiveness for us, no matter our sins. My good friend Judy told me that God made forgiveness before God made humans. I believe this is for a reason. Nobody is beyond repair. I was shown this time and time again. While at Beit Shuvah, I was given second chances by my probation officer after I relapsed, and I was not put back in jail. I was allowed to visit my mother for her funeral, despite a recent relapse. I unknowingly entered a community that would support my love for music and my creative nature. I've gained a relationship with my family again, and I've developed friendships based on love and trust. These all show me that God's forgiveness for me is alive and well. Also, my willingness to forgive myself is alive and well. I no longer believe the lie that I have to be perfect or that I'm beyond forgiveness. Thank you.
You're going to help me sing this, right?
I need my binder.
You can use nades. So here's the deal. I did this sermon before the Adonai Adonai because I was afraid I would lose my voice. Now, anybody who's been here before, you know that this is our prayer. Adonai Adonai, El Rachum, V'chanun. This opens up the gates of forgiveness. It opens up the gates of our heart. It opens up the gates of forgiveness towards others, and it opens up the gates of forgiveness towards ourselves. So everybody up. Everybody up. Yeah. I want to hear it. We got to push open these gates. Let's do it. That was pretty bad. You're in front of the judge. Okay, the judge is going to decide if you go free or if you get locked up. Let's hear you plead before the judge. Okay, think about it this way. The government's going to take more tax money, and you got to bust open the gates so that they don't take your money and the banks don't keep it. Now let me hear. Okay, listen, the gates are creaking open. Here's what you gotta do. We're gonna push open the gates like we would push open the door if somebody, God forbid, was overdosing. We're here about the opioid crisis. Let's do something about it. Push those gates open. Okay, now we gotta talk to Thea, we gotta sing to Thea in a kinder way, because now she knows that the gates are open. She knows that she can be forgiven, but she's still kind of afraid because she's actually a timid young lady. So let's sing nicely and kindly to all the timid young people inside of us to bring us out. Please be seated. Okay, now we turn to page 461. Kianu Amecha.
Anu,
So now we have David P. coming up to talk about a shamnu. David. Wake you up a little bit, right? Got his blood running?
Hi, my name's David. I'm a grateful member of this community. Zach, you were right. This is terrifying. So I was asked to do my drosh about confession, which I thought was cool, until I realized I don't know what that means. I grew up in a Jewish household and went to a Jewish day school, so everything I knew about confession came from movies. I immediately pictured Norman Reedus in Boondock Saints saying, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." And the priest then telling him to do 50 Hail Marys. I still don't know what a Hail Mary is. They never show that part in the movie. So I did what anyone in this situation would do. I Googled it. Confession, noun. A formal statement that one is guilty of a crime. Okay, I know what that is. An admission or acknowledgement that one has done something that one is ashamed or embarrassed about. I also get this. A formal admission of one's sins with repentance and desire of absolution, especially privately to a priest as a religious duty. I don't even know half of those words, let alone understand the definition. Intimate revelations about a person's private life or occupation, especially as presented in a sensationalized form in a book, newspaper, or movie. All right, well, 2 out of 4 ain't bad. I've worked with less. But really, all my real-world experience with confession came through the 4-step and the 9th step. The 4-step states that you should make a searching and fearless moral inventory of yourself. And then, here's the kicker, step 5 is to admit it to God, to yourself, and to another human being, the exact nature of your wrongs. Basically, you confess everything. Most people don't make it through this step, but the funny thing is, most of these horrible things you don't want to admit, the sponsor you're reading it to has done the same, or worse. Then comes the 9th step, which is to make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Once again, anyone who I'm making amends to already knows why. One of my amends this year was to my dad for stealing a watch from my grandmother. I was totally off the hook for this, as everyone thought that one of the round-the-clock nurses took it. In fact, I was never even a suspect. Here's the rub, though. I can't remember with 100% certainty if I actually took it or not. It was 20 years ago. I was doing a lot of drugs back then. It was a little hazy. Also, it's not my MO to steal from friends or family. Regardless, for the sake of being thorough with my step work, I made the amends anyway. What I learned is that it wasn't about if I took it or not, just that I was willing to take the action to make the amends at all. Rabbi Feinstein at a panel here a couple weeks ago said that God is not a noun, God is a verb. I've heard Rabbi Mark say the same thing about tshuva. What I've learned through this whole experience is that confession is not a noun, it's a verb, an action. The dictionary is wrong.
Thank you. On 462, I ask everybody to rise. Now, I know that this is supposed to be a day of affliction, and we're supposed to be afflicted our souls and all this other stuff, but here's the rub. The rabbis, listen to the tune that they put this Oshamnu to. So don't take it too seriously about tapping your chest. What you have to take seriously is that we all are guilty, we all have made mistakes, and we all get to repent and get to be renewed. Let's do it. Seated. Can you imagine that they would ask us, that the rabbis would ask us to confess to being stiff-necked? We're Jews. I mean, how could we ever be stiff-necked? Ha, ha, ha. It says it all through the Torah. Okay, next up is Bradley. Bradley? Please turn to page 467.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bradley. I'm a grateful member of this community. So I'm here to discuss Al Chet, which, as I understand it, is the confession of our sins. And in this vein, I would like to confess a sin I committed today. Earlier today, I was walking through the hallway and sought out the guidance of my friend Rabbi Carey in order to provide feedback about my drosh. And about halfway through receiving that feedback, I realized I made a horrible mistake, which is that I had no intention of changing any of this. So I apologize, and I'll strive to do better. I'm here to discuss Al Chet, which, as I understand it, is the confession of sins. In reading this prayer, which is essentially a long list of sins that the collective we have committed, followed by an asking for forgiveness, I began to think about what the word sin means to me. Sin is defined as an offense against a religious or moral law. While I think that definition is good, I think I can create a more clear picture of what sinning means by providing a specific example. To me, the greatest sin I can commit is when I lie to myself in order to make me believe something I'm doing or not doing is okay. This is a common theme in my life. I regularly take on the belief that because I don't necessarily feel the direct and immediate impact of issues such as global conflict or tumultuous political climate or a deteriorating environment, I'm not responsible to take action in such matters. I allow myself to believe that my energy would be better spent on more local issues and that people more qualified than me can work to help solve these larger scale problems. Here's one of my great sins. I deny responsibility because I tell myself that I am unable to affect real change. Now that this prayer has helped me bring attention to and confess one of my sins, so what? Is the point of this prayer solely to bring awareness to and confess my sins? I don't believe so. I think that awareness and confession are a part of the prayer, but there is also a third part to it, and that is the call to action. I must commit. I must commit to vote despite feeling as though my vote does not matter. I must commit to live a more environmentally conscious life despite my mind telling me that I'm just 1 out of 7 billion people and cannot create real change. I must commit to not stand idly by while strife exists throughout the world around me. This is my Al Chet, that I allow myself to feel helpless towards solving problems occurring in the world around me, and I commit to take action. Thank you.
I don't want you to get hurt. Okay, if everyone would please rise on 467. We'll do this responsively. I just want to say one thing. Get up here. Al Chet Shechatanu is really for missing the mark, which we missed the mark. It's not sin. So it's not like this heavy. It's just we missed the mark. What can I tell you? So I'll do the first one, then you do the italics. We have sinned against you by hardening our hearts.
We have sinned against you by speaking perversely.
I think you could say it a little bit louder, more of you engage in this, because all of us have done it. We have sinned against you publicly and privately. And we have sinned against you by evil thoughts. We have sinned against you intentionally and unintentionally. Together, for all these sins, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Join in the Vial Kulam. And we have sinned against you knowingly and unknowingly. And we have sinned against you by slander. And we have sinned against you by false pride. Together, For all these sins, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Come on, Bial Kulam.
Bial Kulam, Eloha Selivot, Selach Lanu, Mechalanu, Habelanu.
We have sinned against you by wanton glances. Don't tell my wife. We have sinned against you by perverting justice. We have sinned against you by being stubborn. We have sinned against you by causeless hatred. Together, for all these sins.
Forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
One last Bial Kulam. Page 472, the Venu Malkeinu, we're just going to do the last verse with the choir. Correct, choir? Yes. Right? That's what we got. That's what they told me. Venu Malkeinu, Venu Malkeinu, Venu Malkeinu. Okay, please be seated. Tomorrow morning we start at 9 a.m. We go until 6 p.m. I want to thank Rabbi Goldstein for leading us in services. Our amazing choir led by Laura Bagish. Our great behind-the-scenes crew, Ted Greenberg doing the live stream. Hi, Ted's mom. And back doing the sound and the screens and in the live stream, we have Max Hahn, Zach Siegel, and Michael CAS. We got Micah on the guitar, Greg on the bass, Ryan on the saxophone and flute. We got Francesca on the cello, the inimitable Susan Renaud, the indispensable Susan Renaud on the flute. Luca on the drums, James on the piano. And our two cantors, of course, Cantor Rachel and Cantor. We have a gratitude meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Yisker will be about noon-ish, and The gratitude meeting is at 2. We want everybody to show up. Even if you don't show up for services, you can come for the gratitude meeting. And the last thing we're going to do is the Mourner's Kaddish, but we truly want you to know that you're welcome, you're needed, you belong, we want you, and we're grateful for all of you. So anyone saying the Kaddish, please rise. On page 482. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbi, v'yomad divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'hayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbi mevarach le'olam olamei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei, V'itadar, v'itale, v'italal, shemei dekudsha b'richu. La'ela ula'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata. Damiran bi'alma b'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu bi'al kol Yisrael b'imru amen. Hosei shalom b'mramad. Hu yasei shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who welcomes all of our people in the next world send us comfort and wholeness, and we say amen. Tzom kal, an easy fast. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.